Hey y'all, I'm Lauren and welcome to Cantina Cast. Today I'm talking about The Edge of Balance Premonition written by Daniel José Older. This is a volume in the High Republic manga series from phase 3. This one is kind of like an offshoot of the main story. So what I did was I read part 4 first and then I read this one, and I feel like that worked out because part 4 kind of sets up the events that are happening in this offshoot. I have really loved the Edge of Balance manga series. I feel like for the High Republic Phase 3, at least, it has really been one of the highlights for me. And it was for the High Republic Phase 2 as well. And the thing I love so much about it is because as I'm reading The Edge of Balance, I don't feel so concerned with like fact finding for clues, or like I don't feel like I'm on like a scavenger hunt like I sometimes do with some of the other High Republic books where I'm like sifting through the story trying to find clues. When I'm reading The Edge of Balance, I genuinely just feel like I'm just reading a story just to read a story, which, typically that's the experience that I want to get out of reading. So, for whatever reason, The Edge of Balance is just something that really works for me as the type of thing that I would read even outside of the High Republic. Something else I say about the Edge of Balance too is that I don't feel like they are must reads for the High Republic, but the reason I say that is because it's not like if you don't read these, you're not going to be able to follow the main storyline. They are a side story, but for me, it's like one of the best parts of the High Republic. So it may not be a must read in terms of needing to get the whole plot piece together, but just in terms of quality, I do feel like it's one of the higher ones. I also feel like this volume of The Edge of Balance, even though it's a side story of a side story, I do feel like this volume is just one of the best reads out of all of the Edge of Balance volumes. Something to think about is if you don't feel like reading all of the Edge of Balance, you still could read this one, The Edge of Balance Premonition, without having to follow the main story. And if you're reading the High Republic, then you're going to know what's going on. This very much feels like its own isolated one off story. In this volume, we're following Yoda during a Nihil battle on Banshee. During this battle, Yoda has some encounters. He has an encounter with the Nameless, he has an encounter with some Nihil. And during these encounters, I really loved getting Yoda's inner thoughts of how he's making sense of everything. An example is a big theme in this volume is that fear should be examined, not run from. And I loved that that got explored in here because this is something I was talking about in reference to other High Republic novels where I was kind of waiting for someone to be like, "Hey, let's let the fear like wash over you and don't try to like resist it and see if that is actually more effective with dealing with the nameless." And I feel like I finally got that in this volume. And of course, it makes complete sense that Yoda is the one that puts that together. So if you're interested in that concept at all, I would definitely recommend reading this volume even if you're not following the rest of the Edge of Balance. If you want to see how Yoda handles that situation, I feel like Daniel Jose Older did a really good job in writing that scene. And that scene really did make pretty much the whole manga for me. So at this point, I am going to start talking plot details. So if you haven't read this one and you're considering it, now is your time to turn back if you don't want any spoilers. We do open up with the Nihil attacking Banshee, which was set up in the Edge of Balance Volume 4. And during this battle, Yoda takes some younglings to a Bansheean village that's kind of like off to the side away from the fighting for safekeeping. While he's doing that, he has a vision of some people that are suffering because of the nameless that's loose on Banshee that he feels like he needs to go help. When he goes to help these people, it leads him to an abandoned satellite. Turns out that this was a trap set by the Nihil and Marquis on Roe, and Yoda was lured there. They captured some kids and their mother and were using them all as bait. So of course, when Yoda goes to help these people, there's a bunch of Nihil waiting for him and a nameless. Marquis on Roe is actually also observing this whole thing through like a video channel on the satellite. So he's not on the satellite, but he's talking to Yoda during all of this through the intercom. That was something else I really appreciated about this story, is that Markion Ro is very present for a lot of the story and antagonizing Yoda as he's going through this station trying to help everybody. I liked it that Markion Ro was very present for a very large part of the time. I mean, of course, I hate Markion Ro. He's horrible and gets on my nerves, but I did like to hear the back and forth between him and Yoda. Something else I liked about this story is I think that the Nameless in this story, I think that it's the same leveler from phase one, like the original one that Markion Ro had, because at one point, Yoda remarks that this Nameless is a lot stronger than the other ones. Markion Ro is also referring to it as the leveler, and I haven't heard anyone use that word in a while. That makes me think that this is the original one and not one of the ones that was bred in captivity. And so, for that reason, it's a lot stronger. It's in a lot better shape. Also, visually, like in the pictures, it looks better than a lot of the other ones do. So that was another thing that kind of raised the stakes for Yoda. As Yoda is going through the station trying to escape and also fight the Nihil and the Nameless, we see that he is able to withstand an encounter with the Nameless to a certain extent. Like, it can't get really close to him without him feeling the effects of it, but he is able to mentally kind of like stay with himself even in the presence of the Nameless. That does make total sense to me because it does seem like Yoda, if any Jedi is strong enough mentally to be able to resist that feeling of fear that the Nameless causes, makes sense to me that it would be Yoda. So I enjoyed seeing that in action. Eventually, Yoda is able to rescue the mother of the children at one point during this whole maze that he's going through on the satellite. And then shortly after that, he does have another encounter with the Nameless because he's pretty much getting ready to sacrifice himself so the mother can get away. When Yoda has this encounter with the Nameless, this is like the closest that the Nameless gets to him in this whole story. When that happens, Yoda starts seeing visions of everybody who died at the hands of the Nameless, even people that he didn't personally know. For example, he even sees Kevmo from phase two, which Yoda wasn't there when that happened. So Yoda comes to the conclusion that the reason that he's seeing these visions of people, it's not actually his own visions, it's actually that the leveler is feeling remorse and is haunted by these people that it has killed. And when Yoda is putting all this together, there's this one line that he says that's so great, which goes, "Fear can also be a great teacher if we allow it to be, if we face it." That just sums up what spoke to me so much about this story, is seeing how when Yoda is faced with the Nameless, instead of trying to just run away and bury down the fear and like be stronger than it, he kind of embraces the fear, but not in a dark side way, but in a way that's like, what is this trying to show me? What can I learn from this? And him asking himself that question is what helps him recognize what the leveler is doing and then reach out to the leveler with empathy. Once he does this, he has a really profound connection with the Nameless where he has a vision of the Nameless's home world and realizes that all they want to do is go home and they don't actually want to be killing all these people. This is another instance, which we've been seeing in more recent High Republic books lately, where we're starting to get the idea that the Nameless are being used and are just as much of victims as the Jedi are. So this was like another really clear example of that. And I loved getting to see how when Yoda connects with the Nameless, he's able to see the home world, he's able to sense the emotions, and it's a really powerful example of this kind of thing that we've been getting hinted at for a while now. And the crazy thing is that the Nameless lets Yoda go after this encounter. So Yoda is able to get away. The mother that Yoda rescued earlier in the story actually helps Yoda escape, and the kids are okay too. So they do escape the satellite station successfully. So yeah, once again, another great volume from The Edge of Balance. This one just really reaffirmed my love for this manga series. I do feel like some of the volumes are stronger than others, which is kind of an inevitable thing that's going to happen. But this one was really, really great. And it just made me love the series even more. Like I said, if you haven't previously been interested in The Edge of Balance, you could just read this one off story. And I still think if you're a High Republic fan, that you would get a lot out of it. And that does conclude The Edge of Balance. I'm pretty sure that that's the last volume. And I'm really sad that this series is over because I've loved it so much. But I am going to start reading some more Star Wars manga because this was really my first time reading any manga at all, was this series. And I absolutely loved it. So I'm looking forward to getting into some more Star Wars manga in the future. And thanks so much for joining, y'all. I hope that y'all have a great rest of your day. Bye, guys.